The show begins with our hero, Huang, who is taking a special tutoring lesson and practicing problem solving. Despite being an older man, he wants to continue his education and go to university because he dropped out when he was young due to poverty. He tells the teacher that their time is up and takes the paper to check his answers. However, the teacher scolds him for being stupid and getting the wrong answers, thinking he's just a normal person. Suddenly, one of Huang's men enters and tells them they are ready. The teacher is shocked to see them, realizing they're a dangerous gang and Huang is their leader. He becomes afraid, but Huang treats him well because he is his teacher. He excuses himself, saying he has work to do, and asks his assistant to take the teacher home. He then goes to meet his gang. He had asked them to arrest a dangerous criminal who had betrayed them and tried to inform on them, but suddenly, the criminal escapes, grabbing the teacher and threatening to kill him if they don't let him go. Huang gets angry and tells his men not to interfere, deciding to kill the criminal himself. He approaches him without using a weapon. The criminal takes the opportunity and attacks him with a knife. Huang is stronger, though, and manages to block the strike with his hand and defeat him with a single blow. This shows his men his strength, and they start chanting his name, showing that they love and respect him. He goes to check on the teacher, but the teacher can't handle what he's just seen and faints from fear. Afterwards, Huang gets in the car with his assistants and goes to meet the gang's boss, reassuring him that the mission was a success. The boss asks him about his studies, and Huang feels embarrassed. He tells him he failed the exam and promises he will succeed next year. He leaves feeling sad, and asks his men to leave him alone because he wants to be by himself. He gets in his car, feeling frustrated. Then he gets out and starts walking, deep in thought. Suddenly, he sees a high school student standing on a bridge and realizes he wants to kill himself. Huang runs to save him and calls out to him, but the student feels dizzy, faints, and falls from the bridge. Huang has to run to catch him and succeeds in grabbing him before he hits the ground. However, he feels tired from the fall. Suddenly, a car comes from behind and hits him, and he faints. When he wakes up, he finds himself in the hospital and tries to get out of bed, but he falls to the ground and is surprised that he feels so weak. When he looks in the mirror, he's shocked to see he's in the body of the student he saved. He's confused and thinks he's dreaming. Suddenly, he hears his assistants outside the room and goes out to talk to them, but as soon as they see him, they attack him and start beating him, wanting to kill him. Huang is surprised and feels like he can't breathe, realizing he isn't dreaming and that what's happening is real. He hears one of his men scolding him, saying that their boss died while saving him. Huang is shocked by what he hears and doesn't believe it. They have to take him to the funeral to convince him. He sees a picture of himself and knows they are telling the truth, but he can't process what's happening. He breaks down and tries to tell them he is their boss, but none of them believe him and think he's crazy. One of them hits him and tells him to apologize to their boss because he died because of him, as he is sad about his death. But the gang leader tells him to leave him alone and tells Huang to get out of his sight before he kills him. Huang has to listen and realizes his soul was swapped with the student's body because of the accident. He decides to go to the morgue to try to return to his body. He holds his hands and hugs him, but nothing happens. He decides to recreate what happened on the day of the accident. He stands on the bridge and jumps, but he lands in a bus and faints. When he wakes up, he finds himself in the hospital. The first thing he does is look in the mirror, but he is shocked to see he is still in the student's body and realizes there is no hope. He will remain trapped inside it. He goes to visit his own grave and sees a picture of himself with his men. He feels like he misses them. He returns to the hospital and decides to continue his life in the student's body. He's surprised that none of the student's family members came to visit him. Suddenly, a woman walks in, and he thinks she's his mother, but she scolds him for trying to kill himself. He learns that she's his father's secretary. She gives him his belongings and brings him new clothes, warning him not to try to do that again. He's surprised by her attitude towards him. When she leaves, he opens the student's phone and finds his journal entries, which he starts to read. The student wrote that he hated school. Huang reads about his memories and learns that a gang of students used to bully and beat him. They forced him to steal money and jewelry from his father. He had to listen to them because he was afraid, but they kept beating and making fun of him until he became an outcast at school and had no friends. He suffered so much that the gang would use him in their games, shooting at him with bows and arrows. He got to a point where he hated his life and decided to end it to escape the torture. Huang gets angry about what he reads and breaks the phone in a fit of rage. He decides to go back to school and make them regret what they did. He returns to his house and sees an old woman, thinking she's his mother, but she tells him she's his maid. He sees his mother sleeping on the sofa, and realizes she spends all her time sleeping and drinking and doesn't care about him. The maid prepares lunch for him to eat, but she's surprised when he asks for many dishes and starts eating to regain his strength. She's surprised he's changed and is eating so much. Unlike before, he asks her about his father and learns that he's a rich man with many companies, but is always busy and never comes home. Huang starts to change his appearance. The first thing he does is get a haircut because the student used to hide his face, as he had no self-confidence. He buys new school clothes and goes to the library to get books to help him with his studies. There, he sees June, his classmate, but June doesn't recognize him because of his new look. June decides to help him and gives him the books he needs. Huang thanks him and gets in a taxi. At night, he goes to visit his old gang to check on them. He finds out they're leaving the city. He feels sad and leaves them to go back to his new life. Afterwards, he goes to the hospital and gets the cast off his leg. He starts running every day to improve his fitness, goes to the gym, and works out to increase his strength. He takes advantage of being rich and buys all the gym equipment he can get for his house. The vacation ends, and the new school year begins. Huang puts on his school uniform and gets ready to go. He gets into his car and is surprised that the driver drops him off far away. He learns that the student used to ask the driver to do this because he was afraid the students would bully him. He tells the driver to drop him off at the school gate and gets out. Full of confidence, he apologizes to a security guard for being late. The guard is impressed with his polite manners. Unlike the other students, Huang arrives at the classroom and enters, feeling nervous because it's been a long time since he was in a school. The other students are surprised when they see him, and no one recognizes him. They think he's a new student who has transferred to the class, and he sits in his seat. He's impressed that the schools have changed and now have air conditioning and fans. The teacher comes in and starts calling out their names to take attendance. Everyone is shocked when Huang says his name, and they realize he's the outcast student who had no self-confidence. They are amazed. He's changed and looks handsome. The bully gets angry when he sees him and goes to fight him. Huang is happy and tells him, "I was looking for you." He goes with them to get revenge and stand up for the student. The bully's gang gathers around him, but he's not afraid. He laughs and tells them to attack him first because he doesn't hit children. The bully is surprised by what he says and tries to hit him, but Huang easily dodges and hits him back. He tries to lift one of the gang members, but he's too heavy. Huang is surprised that his new body isn't helping him, and he falls to the ground. The bullies take advantage of the situation and grab him, telling him to apologize and grovel like he used to, but his pride prevents him from doing so. He decides to endure the beating. They jump him and continue to hit him, breaking a bone in his face. He falls to the ground. He realizes that he won't be able to stand up to them with his weak body and that he has to train to become stronger. He faints from exhaustion and dreams about the student whose body he is in. The student tells him to give up because his destiny is to suffer in his life. But Huang refuses and promises to help him make his life better, get his revenge on the bullies, and get him high grades. He wakes up from the dream and finds June in front of him. June tells him to go to the school clinic to treat his wounds. Huang refuses, saying they are just minor scratches, but June tells him that if he returns to class looking like that, the other students will be afraid of him and avoid him. Huang is convinced and goes with him. At the clinic, June starts treating him, putting bandages on his wounds. He asks Huang why he acted like he didn't know him when they met at the library. Huang gets nervous and pretends he has amnesia and has forgotten many of his memories. He shakes June's hand and asks if they can be friends, but June is suspicious and feels like he's lying. He tells him he has changed so much, as if he's a different person. Huang is afraid of him, realizing he is smart and could uncover his secret. He decides to avoid him and watch his actions around him. He tries to change the subject, pretending his personality changed after he lost his memory. He excuses himself to go back to class, leaving him behind. At this time, the bullies are surprised that Huang is no longer afraid of them. The main bully keeps thinking about what happened and is worried. Later, Huang returns to class, but doesn't know where to sit. The students are surprised by his behavior, but June arrives and points him to his seat. Huang thanks him and goes to sit down. He sees the girls drawing and using beautiful-looking pens and is impressed because they didn't exist in his day. He learns they are going to the library to buy new pens and asks to go with them. They are afraid of him, but have no choice but to agree. After school, they try to escape from him, but they are surprised to see him waiting for them at the gate. He asks them to get in his car. They are surprised he's rich and agree. They get in happily, and he decides to treat them to lunch. He takes them to a large restaurant and chooses the most expensive food for them. They thank him and start eating happily. He goes to pay the bill because he's rich and has a lot of money. After that, he goes with them to buy pens from the library. The next day, he starts using them in class. Happy to be like them, the students like his personality and realize he is kind. They start talking and joking with him. He goes from being an outcast student to a popular one whom everyone loves. But June is suspicious of his sudden change and goes to talk to him, trying to trick him into revealing something. He keeps asking him about the college he wants to go to. Huang gets nervous and doesn't know how to respond, but his female classmates help him and defend him. They say they used to think he was a gloomy person, but he turned out to be nice. Huang is happy with what they said. Later, he goes to gym class, where there's a running and jumping test. He manages to get the highest score. All the students are impressed with him. They cheer him on and chant his name. The teacher is impressed with his talent and asks him if he trained during the vacation. Huang tells him it's thanks to his advice, but he sees June concentrating on him and is afraid he will find out his truth from the way he talks. He leaves the place and goes outside, where he sees his father's secretary going to the principal's office and pulls her aside to talk to her. He asks her what she's doing there. She tells him she's there to get his file so she can transfer him to another school, but he refuses, saying he doesn't want anyone to control his life. He takes her glasses, throws them on the floor, and breaks them. He warns her that if she comes back to the school, he will do the same to her, smashing her face. He leaves her, and she is furious about his behavior. She's surprised that his personality has changed and he's become so bold. She gets in her car and tells her assistant to make him regret what he did. Afterward, Huang returns to class and is surprised to find June sitting next to him, pretending he wants to tutor him. He starts explaining the lessons he missed. Huang is happy that June considers him a friend, but suddenly, June leans in close and asks him his real name. Huang gets nervous, realizing June is still suspicious of him. A student comes in and tells Huang that the principal wants to talk to him. He is happy and goes quickly to escape from June, entering her office. She tells him that his grades are good and he can get into the college he wants and achieve his dream. She tells him to study hard. He thanks her and decides to follow her advice. When he gets home, he starts studying, but he finds the questions difficult and doesn't know how to solve them. He remembers what June said about calling him if he needed anything. He decides to take a picture of the question and send it to him, asking for the answer. At that moment, June is studying and is surprised by his message, but he's happy that Huang asked for his help. He writes the solution and sends it back, but he's confused about Huang's behavior. Then he goes to sleep and remembers when Huang went to talk to him and told him he knew his secret and threatened to expose him. He gets scared and wakes up from his sleep, terrified. It's clear that he's hiding a dangerous secret that he doesn't want anyone to know about. The next day, Huang starts training and practicing boxing to increase his strength and learn how to defend himself against the bullies. At night, he goes to a sauna. Two young men walk in, but he calls them kids. One of them gets angry and makes fun of him, but Huang grabs his arm as if to break it and sees a tattoo on their arms. He realizes they are new members of his gang and don't have money. He starts giving them advice as he was their old gang boss. Before he leaves, he gives them money to help them and leaves. They are surprised by his personality because he talks like an old man. They thank him and respect him as if he were their boss. Afterward, his two assistants arrive. The young men tell them about the young man they saw and how they feel he's the son of their old boss, but they tell them that their boss was never married. If he had a son, he would have become the leader of the gang after him. Later, Huang returns home and is surprised to find June waiting for him. He asks him what he's doing there, but June says he's there to help him study. Suddenly, his mother wakes up and falls to the floor, hallucinating because of what she's drinking. Huang goes to take her to her room. June takes the opportunity to go into his room and starts searching as if he's looking for something, but Huang walks in and sees him, asking if this is the reason he came over. But June says, "I'm sure you're not Huang." He asks him to tell him the truth, but Huang calls him crazy and leaves to go study. But June doesn't give up. He follows him and asks him to prove that he is Huang. But then they hear Huang's mother fighting with the maid because she hid her alcohol. Huang goes to calm her down, but she slaps him and cries, telling him that because of him, she couldn't become an actress. He feels sorry for her. He hugs her to comfort her and takes her to her room to rest. After that, He goes to change his clothes and decides to go out with June to get a change of scenery. They go to many places and have a good time together. While they are walking, June gets a call from his father telling him to come home. Hwang notices that June sounds scared when he talks. When June gets home, he finds his father waiting for him, yelling because he's 3 minutes late. June tries to apologize and says he was with his friend, but his father fights with him and threatens to make him regret it if he's late again. June goes to his room and remembers his childhood. His father was always cruel and would beat him for every mistake he made. Since then, he's been afraid of him and feels like he's living in a prison. He starts to study hard to achieve his dream of going to university and leaving home. The next day, he goes to school but finds the bullies gang waiting for him. They show him old videos of the student they used to torment. Hwang sees how much the student suffered as they beat and filmed him while bullying him. He gets furious, breaks the phone, and throws it on the ground. The bullies are surprised by what he did and want to fight him, but he decides to get his revenge. He walks up to their leader and challenges him, saying this time he'll make them regret everything they've done. He takes them to a secluded place where no one can see them and tells them to attack him first. The bully laughs at what he says and attacks him, trying to hit him, but Hwang dodges it and headbutts him. Everyone is surprised by what happened. They want to fight him, but the bully stops them, deciding to kill him himself. He attacks him and manages to hit him in the face. He thinks he's won, but Hwang laughs as if he's not affected. He takes off his clothes, determined to use all his strength. He hits the bully and knocks him to the ground. Then he starts fighting the rest of the bullies, turning into a savage monster. This time, he succeeds in hitting them and breaking their bones. Even though they outnumber him, no one can defeat him. He takes them all down, even the fat student. Their leader is forced to use a stick and attacks him with it. But Hwang remembers his days as a gang boss and uses his boxing skills. He flies into the air, hits the bully, and knocks him to the ground. He warns him that if he tries to get close to him again, he'll make him regret it. At the same time, June is in class, and the teacher comes to talk to him. She tells him she feels that Hwang is being bullied because he misses a lot of school and gets bad grades on exams. She asks him to help and protect him from the bullies. But when they look out the window, they see Hwang beating up the bullies and breaking their bones. They are both shocked by what happened. June is surprised by his sudden change. He remembers when he was weak and couldn't defend himself, but suddenly, he's strong, and no one can defeat him. The teacher goes to them and asks what's going on. The bullies claim they were fighting with Hwang, but they tell her that he was the one who hit them. However, Hwang says he was just defending himself. The teacher can't believe he could do that to them. She takes him to her office to check on him. There, she tells him that she won't let anyone bully him again. She decides to hold a disciplinary hearing for the bullies to investigate them. He thanks her and leaves, but afterward, he sees the bullies taking money from younger students by force. He goes and takes it from them, returning it to the students, and telling them to go back to class. The bully gets angry and attacks him, wanting to fight him, but Hwang dodges his punch, grabs his arm, and is about to break it. He forces the rest of the gang to kneel and apologize. The leader of the bullies is surprised that he has become so strong and is beating them. They think he has joined a gang and learned martial arts from them. Hwang tells him that because he was kind, they thought he was weak, but he won't let them do that again. He warns them that if they bully anyone else, he will finish them off. After that, he returns home and starts writing down the goals he wants to achieve. He decides to make friends, defend students, stop bullying at school, help his mother get better and achieve her dream, and also achieve his own dream by getting a high score and getting into his dream university. The next day, he starts working on his goals and forces the bullies to go to school and attend classes against their will, so they can succeed. After class, he warns the leader not to be late, and tells him to be a committed student. Everyone is surprised by what's happening. He continues to intimidate them. He sees them forcing students to listen to them, and threatens them, making them clean the school. He goes to talk to them and asks them to improve themselves and change for the better, so students will like them. They have to listen to him. They are afraid of him and don't know what to do because he is stronger than them, and they think a gang supports him. After that, Hwang returns to class and talks to June, asking him if his father yelled at him for being late yesterday. June remembers what happened but refuses to tell him the truth and leaves. Hwang feels like June is hiding something from him. He is afraid that the student whose body he is in did something to upset June and he can't remember it. He goes to talk to the bully student and asks him about his relationship with June. The bully tells him he used to follow June everywhere, and they thought he was stalking him, but Huang hits him and tells him that he was doing that because he wanted to be his friend. He warns him not to spread rumors again, and knocks him off his chair. He returns to class and sees June helping the students, and they all like him and try to get close to him. Huang doesn't know if he's a good person or if he's planning something. They have a test, and Huang starts solving the problems. When he finishes, he reviews the answers with June, but he is surprised that he got the answers wrong, even though he studied a lot, and he gets upset. He feels frustrated, and his female classmates offer to go out with him, but he refuses because he's not in the mood. He decides to see a private tutor to explain things to him. He asks June to help him and study with him because he only got the questions he explained to him right. Suddenly, students from the basketball team come in and ask June to help them study. It's clear that June doesn't want to. Huang notices that they are taking advantage of him and tells them to leave because he's busy. They are surprised by his behavior. He isn't scared of them and they leave. He tells June to consider him a friend and promises to protect him and not let anyone take advantage of him. June is touched by his words and thanks him. Huang then leaves and goes to the bathroom. There, the basketball team students bully him, calling him a loser and weak, but he decides to make them regret it. He takes the ball from them and challenges them, saying he can beat them alone. They think he's crazy and make fun of him, but they agree to prove he's a failure. At this time, June finds out what's happening and sees the students running to watch the game. He decides to go as well. The game begins, and Huang uses his speed to easily take the ball and score. Everyone is surprised by his skills. In the second round, he jumps high and scores from a great distance, winning the game. June is amazed and can't believe what he's seeing. Huang goes to the basketball team students and warns them not to make fun of or bother June again. He decides to take their ball to punish them. June is impressed by his actions and tells him he agrees to study with him. He takes him to the library and has him write a schedule of the subjects he wants to study. He starts giving him advice so he can get into university and tells him which lessons to study. Huang is excited and starts studying, but he falls asleep from exhaustion. June laughs at him and wakes him up. They go to get something to drink to help them wake up. June is surprised that Huang got an old drink that only older people drink. They start talking to get to know each other better. June tells him that he believes the world won't change unless criminals and bullies disappear. He says the only solution is to get rid of them. Huang is shocked by his words and feels that June is a dangerous person and that this is his true nature. But June leaves to go home so he's not late. The next day, they are at school, and students from the class come to talk to him. They are impressed that he was able to defeat the basketball team students alone. They cheer for him and chant his name, telling him they are proud of him. They ask him to play with them on the class team to win the championship. Afterward, the teacher enters the class and hands out the test results. Huang gets a bad grade and feels frustrated, but June tells him not to give up, and they agree to go study together. Huang is happy and goes to get them drinks. There, June sees a pineapple cake and remembers what the maid told him about Huang being allergic to it and getting sick from it. He decides to test him to find out if he's his real friend or someone who has taken his identity. He invites him to eat the cake, and Huang is surprised but agrees and gets ready to eat it. June gets scared and feels guilty. He tries to stop him, but Huang insists on eating it. Suddenly, he feels like he's choking and can't breathe. He gets dizzy and falls to the ground. June is worried about him. He takes him to the hospital and stays by his side until he wakes up. He asks him how he didn't know he had an allergy. June feels guilty and apologizes for putting his life in danger and promises to help him study to make up for his mistake. Huang is touched by his words and thanks him. After that, they met every day and studied together. Huang started putting in all his effort, staying up late to catch up on the lessons he missed, to the point that he would fall asleep from exhaustion while studying. But June stayed by his side, took care of him, and helped him improve his level. Their relationship started to get better, and they became close friends. At night, we see Huang's old gang preparing for a new mission, but they hear the bullies talking about Huang, saying he fights well. The bullies think he's a new apprentice of their old boss, but the gang members tell them their boss died a while ago, and if he had a son, he would be the new boss. After that, the car they will use for the mission arrives, but they are one person short. They are forced to take the bullies' leader to help them. He's happy because he wants to join the gang and gets in the car with them. At that moment, Huang finishes studying and goes home, but he's surprised to find the gang trying to kidnap his mother. He runs to save her. He starts fighting the person who kidnapped her and manages to hit him. June comes to help him, attacking the driver and knocking him to the ground to prevent him from escaping. The bully student is shocked by what's happening because he didn't know it was a kidnapping. He gets scared, leaves the car, and runs away. Hwang is fighting one of the gang members, but he sees June getting beaten and gets worried. He's forced to use all his strength, defeats the person he's fighting, and goes to help June, pushing the gang members away from him. They stand side by side, working together. The gang is forced to use weapons to finish them off, but they hear police sirens, get scared, and run away. Hwang is happy and thanks June for what he did. Afterward, he takes his mother to the hospital. The maid reassures him that she's fine and tells him to go home, saying she will stay with her, but he refuses and insists on staying to protect them. He tells June to go home so he's not late. The detectives arrive and want to know what happened. He goes to talk to them and offers them money to leave, but they are surprised by his action. He gets nervous and pretends to give the money to June to treat his wounds. Then he goes to talk to them. They ask if his mother has any enemies who might have tried to kidnap her. Hwang remembers the secretary he threatened at school and feels that she is behind what happened, but he refuses to tell the detectives and is forced to lie to them, saying his mother has no enemies and that he was fighting with some thieves and she fainted from fear. He asks them to close the case. June is surprised by what he did and asks him why he didn't ask the police to investigate and catch the criminals. Hwang is afraid they will arrest the secretary, which would make the matter bigger, and people would find out he's his father's illegitimate son. He reassures June that he will handle it his own way, catch the gang that tried to do this, and make them regret it. June laughs because Hwang's words are beyond his age. He leaves and returns home to find his father waiting for him. Asking about what happened, June is forced to lie and says he fought with thieves, but his father doesn't believe him. He takes him to the place he mentioned, but he finds no footprints on the ground and is sure he's lying. June gets nervous and faints from fear. His father has to take him to the hospital. His mother calls him, worried about him, and asks his father to treat him well because he's the reason for what is happening to him. But his father is convinced he's doing it for his own good and hangs up on her. June wakes up and is sad that he's suffering in his life. The next day, he returns home and tries to call the secretary, but he can't reach her. The maid tells him she doesn't know her address. At this time, the secretary is with the gang members, yelling at them for failing the mission. She is afraid the police will arrest her, but they apologize and tell her the case has been closed. They decide to catch the bully who left them and ran away because they think he betrayed them and informed the police. The next day, the bully doesn't show up at school, and no one knows where he is. Hwang forces the rest of the bullies to clean the classroom, so everyone is equal. The students are surprised by his sudden change. They are impressed by his new personality and offer to go out to a cafe with him. They laugh at him because he doesn't understand their slang, as if he's an old man. He gets nervous and tells them he's never had friends before and has never gone out with anyone. They agree to let him join their group, and he's happy and thanks them, but he notices that June isn't at school and gets worried. He leaves the class and sends him a message, learning that June is a little sick and was in the hospital. He tells him to rest, so they can get better and study together again. After that, he returns home and asks the maid to prepare fish, but she's surprised when he eats it raw, and is confused by his behavior since the accident. At this time, the bully goes to Hwang's house and tries to find out what happened from the driver, but the driver refuses to tell him and kicks him out. At night, Hwang goes to meet June to study together. He notices that June's fingernails are damaged and asks him why. June refuses to say that it's because of the stress and fear he lives with due to his father. He changes the subject, and they go into the library to study. But June feels like he can't focus. He leaves the place, and Hwang is surprised because this is not his habit. He goes to sit with him and tries to comfort him. He decides to teach him martial arts so he can defend himself. He starts giving him boxing advice, and continues to practice with him all the way until he drops him off at his house, inviting him to dinner. He sees the bully and invites him as well, learning that he's hungry and hasn't eaten anything all day. He asks the maid to make a lot of food for him. The bully is happy and eats. He is afraid to go home and asks to sleep over with him. Hwang agrees. At night, the bully wakes up and goes to smoke cigarettes, but June sees him and goes to talk to him. He says, "I know you were with the gang when they tried to kidnap Hwang's mother." The bully ran away from fear. The bully is surprised by what he says and tries to defend himself, saying he was the one who called the police to get them arrested. But Hwang hears him and asks him to tell him where the gang is. He's surprised to learn it's his old gang. He decides to meet them to find the secretary's location and gets the address of their headquarters. At night, he goes there, but suddenly, the gang members come from behind and kidnap him. They blindfold him and take him to their hideout. There, they untie him, He is surprised to see his old assistant standing in front of him. At this time, June is on his way to study with him. He sees the gang kidnapping him and wants to call the police to save him, but he remembers Huang's words that he is afraid people will know he's an illegitimate son. So he changes his mind and decides to call his father because he's a lawyer. We go back to Huang, who isn't afraid of the gang. He talks to them with his hands in his pockets, full of confidence. The gang members learn that he is the student their boss died saving. They decide to attack him to beat him up, but he blocks their punches and fights them. He succeeds in defeating many of them and breaking their bones. No one can defeat him. He tries to knock his assistant to the ground, but he's surprised that his weight has increased. He can't lift him and falls on top of him and faints. At this time, we see the bully being punished in class, but his fellow bullies want to hand him over to the gang. He's surprised that his friends are turning on him. He throws papers at them and runs away. He meets June in the street, and June takes him and runs away from his classmates. He learns from him that the gang kidnapped Huang and says he must be at their hideout in the hotel. June wants him to come with him to save him, but the bully refuses because he's afraid of the gang. But June doesn't want to be a coward like him, so he decides to go alone. He leaves him and walks away. Afterward, Huang wakes up and finds his assistant in front of him. He wants to know how he learned martial arts in such a short period, but Huang says it's a talent he has trained for. He blames him for trying to kidnap his mother, and tells him he's ruined the gang's reputation after the boss's death. The assistant gets angry and wants to hit him, but he sees the same look in Huang's eyes as his deceased boss and backs down. He asks Huang about their gang's leader, thinking he betrayed and got rid of him, but the assistant tells him that after their boss died, the other gangs took advantage and attacked them. The leader was injured and was taken to the hospital. He needed surgery, and they couldn't afford it. They were forced to follow the secretary's orders to kidnap Huang's mother so she would give them money. Huang is touched by his story and decides to help him. He tells him to stay away from the gang life and promises to help them and give them money to open a restaurant. At that moment, June arrives at the hotel where the gang is. Knowing his father is watching him, he tells him everything and says his friend is in danger. His father is surprised and wants to take him and leave, but June refuses to abandon Huang and asks his father to help him save him from the gang. However, they are surprised when Huang leaves the hotel. June is relieved when he sees him, but his father tells them to wait for him. He enters the hotel and talks to the gang leader's assistant. He threatens him to stay away from him and his family, or he will have them arrested. The assistant is scared by his words and calls his men, telling them to leave Huang's house and withdraw from the mission. But then the secretary goes to him, reminds him of what she did at the hospital, and says she's paying for their boss's treatment. She threatens him to continue the mission, or she will make him regret it. The assistant is confused and doesn't know what to do. The assistant says that Huang asked him to connect him with the secretary, saying he knows things that only their deceased boss knew. They decide to follow him to find out who he is, and how he knows these things. Huang returns home and sends messages to June, thanking him for not abandoning him, but June asks to talk to him. The next day, they meet at the park. June tells him that his father told him to stay away from him because he is afraid of problems. He tells him that the leader of the basketball team is his friend because his grandfather is a minister. June says he is forced to do this, but he promises to help him study behind his father's back. Huang is happy with what he says and thanks him. The next day at school, he sees June sitting with the team leader and feels jealous. During the break, he goes to play soccer with the class team and manages to score many goals, winning the game. Everyone is impressed with his skill. The basketball team leader sees him and bullies him, but June uses the boxing skills Huang taught him and threatens him that if he talks badly about him again, he will make him regret it because he is his friend. Afterward, Huang sees the bully gang smoking cigarettes. He goes and takes them from them and warns them not to do that again. He forces them to go back to class and attend the lessons. A classmate of his comes to him and asks him to go on a trip to the beach with them. He's happy because he's never been on a trip in his life, and he agrees. The next day, he goes with them and brings a bag of gifts for them. They are happy with them. They gather with the other students and start playing together. Everyone is surprised by the way he talks and acts like an old man. When they go to take pictures, he doesn't know how to do the poses of young people and takes a grimacing photo. Then he learns that the bully leader isn't going to school and is working part-time. He goes to meet him and asks him to go back to school, saying he will help him and give him money. Suddenly, he gets a call from June and learns that he's standing on the bridge. He thinks he wants to kill himself and runs to save him, but when he arrives, he finds him sitting on the ground, feeling lonely. He decides to make him feel better. He takes him to the beach. They go into the sea and play, and splash water on each other. They have a nice time and get closer. They sit and talk. Huang decides to play a prank on June and tells him the seawater tastes sweet. When June tastes it, it turns out to be salty, and he gets angry and chases Huang. They are happy and laughing. Meanwhile, Huang's assistants are watching them without being seen. Afterward, they go to the market and buy new clothes. Huang rents a bicycle and starts teaching June how to ride. He falls more than once, but doesn't give up. He keeps trying until he learns. They race each other all day. At night, they go to stay in a hotel, but the clerk says they can't because they are under the legal age. With nowhere to stay, Huang decides to take action. He goes to an old hotel and meets the manager. He tells him he's a gang member and asks to stay there. The manager refuses because he doesn't believe him, but Huang reminds him that the gang's boss helped him before, and he must return the favor. The manager is forced to agree and gives them the keys. His assistants go to the hotel and are surprised by what happened. They are amazed at how Huang knew such a secret. They decide to stay in the room next to him to watch him, but they can't stay up and fall asleep. Later, June tells Huang about his life and how he has suffered from his father's treatment since he was little, to the point that he would throw his toys away. When he got older, he learned that his father had put a tracking device on his phone to know his location. He couldn't take it anymore, and felt like he was living in a prison. Huang is moved by his words and tries to comfort and console him. He tells him he's there for him anytime he needs him. After June falls asleep, Huang takes his phone without him knowing and calls his father. He tells him that June is with him, so he doesn't worry. He lets him know that his son is afraid of him, and asks him to treat him better, so he doesn't hate him. The next day, Huang wakes up early, and calls his assistants. He tells them he knows they were watching him, and asks to talk to them. They are surprised by what happened, and go to meet him. They ask him how he knows the secrets of their boss. He decides to tell them the truth, and talks about the lives of each of them and how the boss helped them and stood by them so they would believe him. We learn that one of them had a father who was a farmer and lost all his money and was going to go to jail, but the boss stood by him and gave him his land back. The other was an orphan and couldn't find a place to stay, but the boss took care of him, helped him, and took him into the gang so he could have a good life. He's about to tell them that he is the boss, but they are touched by his words and start crying. They think he's the son of their boss and hug him. Huang has to play along because they wouldn't believe that his soul was transferred to the student's body. He invites them to breakfast, and they eat together as if they are one family. June walks in and is surprised when he sees them, but Huang tells him they are his relatives. Afterward, they get in his car to go to school, and June is worried about his father's reaction, but Huang reassures him and tells him not to be afraid. When they get to class, they see the bullies waiting for their leader to hand him over to the gang. He goes to them and has his assistant talk to them. The assistant tells them to listen to Huang and follow all his orders. They are surprised by what he says and are forced to agree. After that, June's father goes to school to talk to his son, but Huang goes with him to protect him. June's father gets angry and tells him to leave, but June faints from stress. They take him to the school clinic, and Huang stays by his side to check on him. His father feels guilty, but Huang asks to talk to him. He tells him that his cruel treatment is the cause of what's happening to his son. The father gets angry at the way he's talking and tries to hit him, but Huang grabs his hand and says his father also treated him harshly, which is why he dropped out of school and joined gangs. He tells him to get rid of the tracking device he put on his son's phone if he wants him to be okay. Huang leaves him and goes to sit with June until he wakes up. He reassures him that his father has left the school. He takes him to eat at the school cafeteria, where they see the basketball team leader. Huang tells him to leave and come sit with them, but June refuses and embarrasses him. Huang is impressed by what he did and is happy that he's become brave and isn't afraid of anyone. They go to the library to study together. At night, the bully student is on his way home from work and finds the bullies waiting for him. He gets scared, thinking they will hand him over to the gang, but they tell him what happened and ask him to come back to school and not be a coward. He is surprised by what they say, but he tells them he's not a coward, and lets them know that he was running away from them because he considers them his friends and doesn't want to hurt them. He attacks them. Later, Huang falls asleep while studying. June feels bad for him and doesn't want to disturb him. He leaves him a note, thanking him for what he has done for him. The next day, Huang returns home and finds his mother sick because her medicine ran out and the secretary didn't bring any more. He has to go to the pharmacy to get it for her. There, he learns that the medication is dangerous and can cause depression and insanity. He realizes the secretary is trying to get rid of his mother. He gets angry and calls his assistant, asking him to find the secretary's location so he can punish her himself. The assistant is hesitant because the secretary is the one who employs them and gives them money, but he decides to stand with Huang because he thinks he's their boss's son. Suddenly, the secretary walks in and asks them to kidnap Huang, but they refuse. They tell her this is the last time they'll work with her. They threaten her to go and apologize to Huang and ask for his forgiveness, or they will kidnap her and take her to him by force. They kick her out of the place, but when she leaves, she sees the bullies and hears them talking about Huang. She decides to use them to get revenge on him. The next day, Huang goes to school, but he learns from the students that Jun's father filed a complaint against him, accusing him of kidnapping his son and forcing him to stay out of the house. Huang is surprised by what he heard, because he is innocent and didn't do anything. We see Jun's father in a meeting with the school administration, convincing them that Huang is a member of a dangerous gang and his presence at school puts the students' lives in danger. They agree that they must expel him. At the same time, Huang gets a call and learns that the bullies have filed a report against him, saying he beat them up. He's surprised and knows the secretary is behind what's happening. He decides to make her regret trying to ruin his life. He is surprised that she calls him and asks to talk to him. He decides to go meet her to settle the score. There, she threatens him, telling him to listen to her and agree to transfer from the school and go to another city far away, or she'll have him thrown in jail. But he realizes she's doing this to get rid of him and his mother, so the way is clear for her to marry his father and take over everything. He refuses, and tells her he won't let her do that. He wants to fight her, but he finds she has a lot of guards with her. She leaves him and walks away. After that, he goes to school but is surprised to find that Jun has been transferred from the class. He learns that his father did this to get him away from him. He gets sad and sits in his place, feeling lonely, but his female classmates go to comfort him and promise to help him with his studies. Suddenly, Jun walks in and tells him he refused to leave the class. He promises to testify with him to the school administration to prevent them from expelling him. Huang is happy with what he says and is impressed that he has become brave and isn't afraid of his father. He decides to go to the police station to prove his innocence and meets the detective. He tells him that he was defending himself against the bullies and that they were the ones who attacked him first, but the detective asks him to bring evidence or a witness to support his claim. He is forced to go and meet his assistants and tells them what happened. They get angry and want to go beat up the bully gang, but he tells them that the secretary is behind everything. They reassure him that they will handle it and tell him to focus on his studies. He decides to trust them and leaves. He goes to study with Jun and puts in all his effort, and his level improves. The next day, he goes to school, and the students are surprised that he was able to answer all the questions correctly. They are impressed with him. A girl goes to talk to him and asks him to study with them, but he apologizes and says he studies with Jun. His classmate sees what happened and thinks he's dating her. She gets jealous and asks him who is prettier, but he gets nervous and doesn't know how to answer her. She thinks he finds her ugly, gets upset, and leaves the class crying. Huang is surprised by her reaction. After that, Jun finds his father waiting for him and yells at him for withdrawing the complaint against Huang. He asks him to testify against him, saying that he beat up the bullies. Jun refuses because if he does that, Huang will go to jail. But his father threatens to kick him out of the house if he doesn't listen to him. At night, Jun locks himself in his room to think until he finds a solution. The next day, he goes to meet the bully leader and asks him to testify with Huang in court and show the videos they had filmed of themselves beating up Huang. But the bully is afraid and says that, if he does that, he will also go to jail because he was beating up Huang with them. Jun gets angry and tells him that Huang refused to report him for trying to kidnap his mother because he was afraid for him. He asks him to return the favor. The bully feels guilty and keeps thinking about what he said. At night, he goes to meet Huang. He kneels on the floor and apologizes, crying, and tells him he can't testify with him because his future will be ruined if he goes to jail. Huang is touched by his words. He tries to comfort him and takes him home. He prepares food for him and tells him to change and stop bullying students and to focus on his studies to succeed. He then takes him home. Afterward, he goes to visit his mother at the hospital and stays up next to her until he falls asleep from exhaustion. When he wakes up, he finds his mother awake. He's surprised that she knows the address of the secretary's apartment. He calls his assistants and asks them to arrest her, but when they go, they find the apartment empty and realize she doesn't live there anymore. They call Huang and tell him what happened. He feels frustrated and goes to the police station for the investigation. The bullies are confident they will win the case. Suddenly, the bully leader arrives. Huang is surprised when he sees him and tells him to leave and go to school for his future, but he refuses, takes one of the bully's bags, and gives it to Huang, telling him it has a phone with videos that prove his innocence. The bullies are shocked by what happened and try to attack him to stop him, but the bully starts fighting them and helps June. Using the boxing skills Huang taught him, he keeps hitting them and breaking their bones. The detective arrives, and Huang shows him the videos the bullies had filmed of themselves beating him up. He succeeds in proving his innocence. The detective decides to arrest them to hold them accountable. Huang is touched by what the bully did. He thanks him and promises to stand by him and get him a lawyer. After that, he learns that the gang leader has been released from the hospital. He goes to check on him. He's happy when he sees him and tells him to take care of himself. But the leader feels like he knows him. He asks him to sit next to him and starts telling him about their memories together, crying. Huang deduces that he knows his true identity and confesses everything to him. He tells him he is ready to go back to the gang and follow his orders, but the boss refuses, hugs him, and asks him to stay in school and study hard to achieve his dream of going to university. Huang is touched by his words and cries, promising he will do so. Afterward, he goes to visit his mother at the hospital. He's happy that her health has improved and she's been cured of depression. He takes her and leaves. He gets in a taxi and tells her to go home. He decides to meet the student's father to make him acknowledge him. He calls his assistants and asks them to meet him at the airport. He manages to find out his flight time and waits for him as soon as he lands. The secretary is surprised when she sees him and gets scared. She tries to run away, but Huang goes after her and catches her. He takes her to the father to expose what she did. He tells him she tried to kidnap his mother and was giving her antidepressants to get rid of her, so she could take her place and marry him. She also tried to get him thrown in jail. The secretary tries to defend herself in front of the father, but he knows she's lying. He tells her he will punish her for everything she did. He forces her to kneel and apologize to Huang, but Huang refuses her apology. He douses her with water and warns her that if she ever gets close to his mother again, he will make her regret it. The father is impressed by his personality and feels proud of him. He decides to acknowledge him as his legitimate son and make him his heir, but Huang refuses, telling him he's not proud of him because he abandoned him and his mother. He lets him know that he doesn't want anything from him and leaves. He goes to sit alone after achieving all his goals. The student's soul appears in front of him, and he knows he wants to go back to his body. Huang sits with him and tells him that he has solved all his problems, gotten rid of the bullies, cured his mother, and made his father acknowledge him. He asks him to take care of his life and not try to harm himself. The student thanks him for everything he did and gives him one more day before returning to his body. Huang decides to take the opportunity and goes to school to say goodbye to his classmates. They are surprised by his words and think he's joking. At night, he decides to go on a date with the girl who likes him. She confesses her feelings and tells him she loves him. He gets nervous and embarrassed and tells her he will give her his answer in a day. She is surprised by what he says, but tells him she will wait for his answer. Afterward, we see June working part-time to get away from his father. We learn that he decided to rely on himself. Huang calls him and asks to meet. He decides to confess the truth to him before he disappears. He takes him to visit his grave, shows him his picture, and tells him everything. He says, "I was a gang boss, and I saved the student when he jumped off the bridge. At that moment, my soul entered his body, and I decided to help him solve his problems and improve his life." He tells him he will be returning tomorrow, and asks him to take care of him and to remain friends forever. He leaves him and walks away, feeling emotional, and finds his assistant waiting for him, crying. He realizes he felt it and knew he was his boss. He takes him to have a drink one last time. There, he confesses the truth to him and scolds him for hiding his true identity from him all this time. Huang apologizes because he thought he wouldn't believe him. He thanks him for staying loyal to him all this time. The assistant is happy with what he says and promises he will remember him for the rest of his life. At night, June goes to say goodbye to him one last time and tells him he's the best friend he's ever had. He thanks him for everything he did for him. Huang is touched by his words and asks him to take care of himself. He tells him to go, so he can get some sleep. June keeps crying because he will miss him. The next day, it's time for the student to return to his body, but he refuses to do so. He thanks Huang for sacrificing his life to save him, and decides to return the favor. Huang is surprised by what he did, is touched, and thanks him, promising he will take advantage of the opportunity and achieve all his goals. The days pass, and we learn that he graduated from school. He succeeds in achieving his dream and gets into university with John. They remain friends forever. The show ends there. Goodbye.